Well, welcome everyone to this Zoom edition, a mini Zoom session. Thank you for having lunch with me. I'm Leslie, Electric Impulse Communication. Today, we're going to talk about how to soar in a post-COVID world. This is kind of the third part of this series. The first part was Zoom sessions about my book. The second, the most famous people I know that will take my call. And the third section has been on timely topics. Well, today is how to soar in a post-COVID world. And interestingly enough, the CEO of Morgan Stanley has made news all over the country for saying, if you can go to a restaurant, you can go to the workplace. So proof that this topic is timely today. I want this to be an interactive session. I have a PowerPoint that we can use as a guideline, but honestly, if I don't get to it, that would be fine with me too. If you ask or answer a question, you will have a choice of a Starbucks card or a coaching call with me. My feelings will not be hurt if you take the Starbucks card. I don't mind losing to Starbucks, but you will have a choice, and there is no amount that you can call it or answer as many times as you want. Once you answer, you're not done for it. You can ask or answer as many times and get a Starbucks card or a coaching call each time. It would be a help if you emailed me to remind me. We're going to try to make sure we write your names down, but please remind me with an email. That would be great. A few weeks ago, I went to one of my first events, and I was really surprised that we were socially distanced and we wore a mask, but afterwards, the woman that came up to me on my left said, you know, I kind of like being on my couch watching this on Zoom, all curled up than coming in person. And the person on my right said, oh, well, I'm going to be back all the time. And I realized that people are going to be looking at this post-COVID, whatever post-COVID means to you, are going to be looking at it in a different way. I'm going to refer to the time between now and Labor Day, because I think we're going to see with Labor Day, perhaps some decisions made for us that will take away our ability or our desire to make those decisions. Strategy is a gift. Now, sometimes I say, you know, communication is a gift, or how you answer the why you question is a gift. Today, I'm saying that having a strategy for how to deal with everything from the restaurant, inside, outside, the handshake, the hug, working remotely, not working remotely, heels, waistband, bras, whatever. Having a strategy is a gift you give yourself. What I'm going to do today is I've taken conversations with PhDs, MDs, written material, and all kind of put it in a blender. And that's what I'm giving to you along with my perspective. You want to have a strategy for going through what I call COVID crazy, because we've got people kind of all over the map, and you want to have a strategy for how you're going to deal with the next couple months. We can't see the future, but we can design our future. So for example, last Monday, I had a former client who's now retired, comes into town every so often, and we go to lunch. So my job was to find a place for lunch that had outside eating. Now, this is a Monday in Akron, Ohio. To my surprise, how many restaurants with outside eating did I find open on a Monday? Any guesses? The answer would be none. None. No. When did restaurants start closing on Mondays? I had no idea. But so we have to think about a future. If you're going to go somewhere and you want to eat outside, you want to think about that ahead of time. Some of the restaurants, you can't call to make a reservation. You can only do it online. You can only do it at Open Table. So you want to have a strategy for whether it's the workplace or your personal life. You want to have a strategy. I don't know about you, but I have a love-hate relationship with my couch. On one hand, I love it. It has become my, my mothership. And all during that time of the last 15 months, it was like, well, when can I get off of it? Well, I was listening to a CNN reporter talk about the same trepidation of now she has to leave her couch. So how do you do it? Well, the answer to any communication challenge, and as you may know, I see everything as a communication challenge, is one of three strategies. Chunk it into smaller pieces. Three, the answer is three, or ask questions. So experts say you're not just going to all of a sudden get off the couch and never go back to it. So what you want to do is start out with something small, like if your wake up time has been floating each day, depending on when you had your first Zoom call, perhaps you want to start with a same wake up time each day, or the same bedtime. If you've been binging all night, I binged on Saturday on Lupin. If anyone watched that on Netflix, the second season just came out. If you're binging and stay up late because you don't have an early wake up, perhaps you want to start being more consistent there. Perhaps you want to start with, well, I will try one outside lunch per week. So, well, somebody is on in an odd video. That's very odd. Now, can we get rid of that? Just hang on for a second. I feel like I've been photobombed. Okay, just hang on. That was interesting. I don't know. It says for, I don't know. I don't know the name. Somebody thinks it's funny. So we are trying to remove him, if you just bear with us. We need to report him. This is almost like those scams with Amazon, and you've ordered a $1,100 iPhone.
Okay.
Okay. I think we've got it.
Is that everybody?
Okay. We will continue. That was fun. Yeah. So you want to get off your couch, chunk it into small pieces. Some of you may have heard me say that there are those that say you can't eat the whole chocolate cake, but you could eat it a piece a day. And at the end of a week or so, you'd say, I can't believe I ate the whole cake. So take it in a chunk as you leave your beloved couch that, okay, I will try one night, I will do something, or I will go there an hour later today than I usually make it to the couch. So chunk it is one answer as part of the strategy that you're going to give yourself as a gift. Any guesses out there what I'm going to say about Zoom? Although it's like our couches, we kind of have a love-hate relationship. Any comments, any guesses? First of all, do you know that in private schools, they could require that the camera was on during class? Public schools could not require it, but private schools could. And that's huge. If you're going to be on Zoom, I understand the temptation to put on, a photo and then be able to eat or do whatever you want to, but we're already so unengaged that please try to be live when you are on a Zoom session. But my real point is, when you have a choice going forward in your strategy to soar as you come out of COVID, if you have a choice of in-person or Zoom, go in person. We had a horse talk. The first horse talk of our season was on Friday. The next one is July, and the next one is September, if you'd like to join us. You cannot lead a horse on Zoom. You can't. You have to be present. You might have heard the saying, there used to be a saying that was used a lot with like conferences. You can't learn how to ride a bicycle in a conference. Well, you can't do it on Zoom either. So when you have a choice, maybe once a day or once a week, you will go in person rather than on Zoom. Just because you can Zoom doesn't mean it's the best option. In person, your presence is still a gift you are giving to your audience of 1 or 10 or 100, whatever that is. Memory and attention decline under high demand. And so in some ways, if you have 8 Zoom calls a day, it's exhausting and it's harder than in person. On the other hand, it can be harder, of course, in person when you have more than your neck down to think about, but it's still high demand. If you are paying attention and you need to remember things in a Zoom session, that's an awful lot of demand.
Sexy.
So you can also give yourself a break by doing some of these in person.
Hello.
Yes? Hello?
Can you hear me? Hello.
We'll just unmute. Also, keep in mind that you need breaks, whether it's from Zoom or whether it's once you go back to the office or you're staying in the office, you need a break. A break is a break from what you are normally doing. So if you're normally with your kids, it's not really a break to do something with your kids. A break is an activity that enhances brain activity. And it does it because of the routine. So it may be watering your plants. It might be making a soup that you could make blindfolded. That still enhances brain activity. It may be binging on Netflix if it enhances your brain activity. So perhaps you read the subtitles because that takes some brain activity rather than just sitting and listening to it. Perhaps you listen in a foreign language and read the subtitles in English because that would enhance brain activity. You're going to have a lot of choices. Remember, one solution in your strategy is to chunk them into smaller pieces. So maybe you don't think about going away for a week or 2. Maybe you think about starting with an overnight. You chunk it. Maybe you think about, what is my mindset? Is my mindset that the worst can happen, or is my mindset that I've looked at all the possibilities and I'm prepared? You know what, I flew to California in April and I was a little bit anxious. A client who's a doctor gave me the real N95 mask. So I was all prepared and I took gloves so that I didn't have to keep touching everything. And so I was trying mindset wise. It was actually a great experience, although unruly clients has increased from 100 and some a year to 3,000 already in half a year. My planes were great. And one thing I want you to think about, Heather, if something has now happened to my PowerPoint, I'm like photobombed to death here today. There are a million bad things, I do believe, have come out of COVID, but there are some good things. Now, if you want to think about the worst of humanity, think about pre-COVID when you're on a plane and it lands and everyone's making a mad dash from their row to the aisle so they can be the first one off the plane, right? Like to wait for your luggage. But yeah, someone,
Wow.
I don't know how someone got in and did
We
that.
got an email that said your Zoom has been
Yes, we got an email that said my Zoom has been compromised, but we're just going to keep
this meeting.
Yeah, just this meeting. We're just going to keep going. So I believe a million things are bad, but I've got to tell you, one of the things that was great, and I hope they continue to do it, is instead of the worst of humanity, when we deplane, they had you get off by row like a wedding gets dismissed, you know, and it was so orderly and nice, and people weren't jockeying and you weren't getting hit by overhead luggage. It was great, and I hope they keep that up. So if our mindset is, oh, this is going to be a horrible experience, or our mindset is, you know what, I've done everything I can and it's going to be as good as possible. But everything starts with your mindset. If you remember, people have asked me questions, you know, what should I wear to this interview? Where should I sit? And I always say it's mindset first. It's always your mindset first. And then how do I implement that mindset? And the third thing is you look at choices is be ready to pivot. You know, one of the lessons, and I like to think there's many lessons that can be learned in horse talk, but one of the lessons is when is it good to pivot, to regroup and try something different? And when is it giving up? But especially entrepreneurs know that you have to pivot. And so you want in your strategy that you are ready to pivot. Let's say you decide to go to an event. And for whatever reason, let's say you think it's outside and it ends up being inside, so you're not as comfortable. Well, maybe you'll stay for half an hour instead of 2 hours, but be ready to pivot. If you're comfortable and having a good time, maybe you'll stay for 2 hours instead of 30 minutes. So be ready to pivot. As you look at these options, chunk it into smaller pieces. Think about what's my mindset and be ready to pivot. There was an article in the New York Times a couple months ago that got more buzz than most articles that at least I hear or read. And it was about languishing. Did anyone read it? Does anyone know what languishing is? If you think about a continuum, you've got, and if you do have a question or an answer, you can always chat me also. You think about a continuum. I think we all know depression's over here on this side when we don't get out of our pajamas and we can't get off the couch and we haven't showered in a week. Okay, maybe we can say that's depression. Over on the far other side of the continuum, we have flourishing, where we are flourishing. And I think that pretty much explains itself. And in the middle, we have languishing. Now, one of the points of this article was if somebody asks you during this COVID time, how are you? It's not bad to say, well, I'm languishing, thank you. Well, I'm not quite sure what the person you're talking to would do with that. But what I would say to you is the idea is that you name it, whatever you're feeling, that you name it. That, you know, I'm anxious about going on this flight. You know, I'm anxious about going to this meeting. That to name it is a help, not a hindrance. And languishing is that place in between flourishing and depressing or depression. Another one of the strategies that I want you to think about for yourself as you give yourself the gift of a strategy is to keep reassessing. You know, I use the term regroup, that you keep reassessing and that what's going to work 2 months ago, last month, this month is going to change. You know, the whole mask, as we are going to take a look at the masks, one of the things on national radio, if you listened at all, was that people were surprised that if you ever went to Trader Joe's during this whole COVID time, there was always a long line. It could be 10 degrees below zero. And in the Cleveland Trader Joe's, there was a long 45-minute line to get in, partly because they really clung to their rules of how many people were allowed in the store at one time. And until someone came out, no one else could come in. And it was like that 12 months of the year. Well, when the mask mandate was lifted and it was up to individual companies to decide about the masks, Trader Joe just took off the Band-Aid and said, no masks, period. And people were so surprised, like, you guys were so adamant and now no masks. So we have to keep reassessing. You know, someone said to me the other day, they keep a mask with them because some places you go, there is a mask, some there isn't. I dropped my one dog off at the vet today. If it's Wednesday in June, it's glucose test day where they test her all day for her insulin numbers. And they, you know, you don't go in, you drop the dog off and the techs are still wearing masks. So I put my mask on because I wanted to be respectful of them. I can't put a sign on me that says I'm double vaccinated, I'm safe. In some ways, I wish like we turned us all blue if we got our vaccine, because then we would know who had it and who didn't. But you want to continue to reassess the situation and how you feel about the situation. It's confusing. Again, I said, you know, we're talking about between now and Labor Day. I think after that, it could be better, it could be worse. They're talking about different variants. But for over the summer, you just want to have a strategy, and it can evolve. It can be, I'll keep one with me. Someone said to me when they go in a store, if the staff has to wear them, they wear them out of respect to them. I thought that makes sense. I think that's kind of a good policy. So have a strategy and know that you can pivot on that strategy. You know, what I found more challenging in the last year or so is not the handshake. I can see the handshake coming. I can see the hand, the arm coming. Any guesses out there what has been more challenging for me than the handshake? Joyce, yes. Yes, Joyce, you can unmute yourself and
Is
you
it
can,
hugging people?
hugging, yes.
Yeah,
I
that's
call
been
them
awful for me.
drive-by hugs because you don't see them coming like you see the hand. And so I don't have the same time to prepare. So have a strategy. If you say, well, you know, I'm just going to carry Purell with me. Are you going to shake a hand? Are you going to fist bump? Are you going to elbow bump? Are you going to bow? Are you going to just say, no, thank you? What are you going to do? You know it's going to happen. So have a strategy. Now, part of your strategy may be to ask what they feel comfortable with. You know, is it okay if I shake your hand? You know, I've had people say, is it okay? I'm thinking like, you know what? You didn't want to hug me in the last 40 years and now you want to hug? But ask and have a strategy when you're on the receiving end. Now, it's not just about the physical amenities. It's also about just how normal our life was before. For instance, you have someone, maybe it's a client, maybe it's someone at work, and you go out to lunch with them once a week, once a month, once every other month, and you're kind of on an every other time basis. So this time you pick up the check, the next time they pick up the check. Who's going to remember where you're at? So have a strategy for being receptive. Have a strategy. Are you going to just say, you know, here, let's just start again and, you know, I'll pick it up. Are you going to split it? What are you going to do? Have a strategy. If you've had an office that has had a jar of candy in it, what are you going to do? Are you still going to have that open jar of candy, or maybe it'll be wrapped this time? Just have a strategy. Have thought about it. Is it you're going to have a meeting at lunchtime at your office? Is it a good idea to have people eating together or not? Maybe they eat before they come. So just have a strategy, not just about the handshake or the hug, but all the things that we used to take as normal. Even someone coming into the office. I had truly an annoying client that used to greet every person on her team at the door every morning to say good morning. She thought she was being nice. I believe she just wanted to clock in and know what time you're actually coming. But if you have that greeter, how are you going to greet them? So have that strategy about the actual physical, and then the things, you know, how are you going to feel about people eating in your office? Or are you going to have the things in your office to clean? You know, it's kind of nice thing about the airlines. They gave you something to clean your seats with, even though they were supposed to be clean. So what are you going to do about that? When you go to a meeting, do you want to carry something with you so you can clean the chair and the table around you? Have a strategy. You get in someone else's car. Are you going to feel comfortable? Are you going to need to adjust it in some way? Someone comes in your car. Are you going to feel comfortable with that? Are you going to say, I'll meet you there? Have a strategy. You're looking for small wins between now and Labor Day. You know, I got through half a day. I got through this meeting, you know, this phone call. I went in person instead of Zoom. Look for the power of small wins. Anyone guess? There's one reason I have this slide. Anyone guess what it is? There's one small piece I want you to see. Any guesses?
Leslie, is
The
it
body-
the blinders on them?
Yes, Is that Joyce? Yes.
Yeah, it
That's
is.
two. It's Starbucks and coaching, two coaches.
No, I just want your
Starbucks.
time. I love
It's
talking
the
to you.
blinders. You're going to need to put blinders onto others. You know, you're going to want to sit in judgment of, you know, they haven't come in the office at all, and I've been here every single week, or they've come in and I haven't been here. So you're going to want to look at people differently. Like, why are they still wearing a mask? I heard a conversation this morning that somebody said, well, why don't you just, when you see someone wearing a mask now, why don't you just go up and ask them, why are you still wearing a mask? And the other person said, well, I wouldn't do that. That is so rude. So you want to put blinders on to those that never stopped coming in and to those that never came in. You know, the word I like, but I cannot implement it is grace, that we all need to have a little bit more grace for however people got through this last 15, 16, 18 months, is that we have some grace and put blinders on, and we just think, how am I going to get through it? Because everyone's going to have some kind of a different way of getting through it. Which leads me to 2 out of 5 Americans have gained 29 pounds. Let me just repeat that. 2 out of 5 Americans have gained 29 pounds. It started as 10, and then they kind of joked about the freshman 15, the COVID 15, and then it went to the COVID 19. 2 out of 5 have gained 29 pounds. So it's going to take a little progress each day to work on that. Now, I think it's kind of interesting. Peloton, if you're familiar with the bike that's really the 8th wonder of the world, went from 48 million workouts a year to 190 million workouts a year. Now, when it says a little progress each day, you can take a 15-minute class on Peloton, a 20-minute class, 30-minute class, 45-minute class, or a 60-minute class. But you don't have to take a 60-minute class. You can take 15 minutes. You know, you can walk around the block. It's a little progress each day we want to look for, not all of a sudden expect yourself to be back to quote where you were, whatever that means, in either how you get dressed or how many days you go to the office. A little progress each day. If you are the workplace, you may want to include other people in your decisions. I have a client that went from maybe a month or so ago, just said, okay, everybody back 4 days a week, you get 1 day remote. And people said, well, how did you come to that decision? So you may want to ask and come to some kind of a group decision as to what your new normal, or perhaps over the summer, will look like. Well, when I put this slide in, New York and California were not open. Now it's like, oh, we can fill the stadium with as many people as we want, which may give you some other challenges as you come up with your own strategy. Life may not look the same. Networking events may not look the same. Your dress may not look the same. Meetings may not look the same. The service that you get from people in any organization that requires service, whether it's a restaurant or whether it's a store, it may not look the same. The hours a place is open. I did not expect restaurants not to be open on Mondays or the mall to close at 7. Hours may not look the same. So remember, things will not look the same. Your job is to create your own strategy. The answer for many companies and many individuals is something that's hybrid. Whether, 39% of workers that have been working remotely said if they cannot continue to have flexible hours, they will quit their job. That's like huge. 39% of the workforce deciding their hours or what it's going to look like. So whether it's you're deciding for you or for a company, it will probably be some hybrid. Now, whether that will look like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Monday and Tuesday in the office, Monday and Tuesday at home, half days, whatever it will look like, just be purposeful. Just make decisions on purpose for what is going to be best for you. 1.3 million women stayed home during COVID because they had babies, toddlers, or young children. That 1.3, we can't flip a switch. It's going to be a dimmer switch that slowly things will change and that hybrid will be an answer for many people. Today, I said strategy is the gift you give yourself. You know, Putin and Biden are meeting today. And one Russia expert said the other day that Putin is a great tactician. He's a horrible strategist. He doesn't look at the end game, that his country is poor. They have basically no trade. They have no, nothing except for fuel that they can sell to the world. And so he doesn't look at the end game. He doesn't look at the bigger picture, but he's really good at implementation. Like, I will just kill you if you don't agree with me. But you want to be both a good strategist for yourself and you want to be good at implementing. And in your strategy, we want to remember, even if we fall short like me, that we want to have grace. We want to have patience. We want to have a place for people having different perspectives. We want to have different criteria for success. It may be to wear heels for an hour may be a success. To pivot, when to pivot. Pivot is not giving up. There are some people that, COVID has been very good for their business. So we need to remember that we need to look at things from a different perspective. It's not all good or all bad. And I believe, as I said, COVID is responsible for a million bad things, but there are some good things that will come out of it also. And if we can all learn our own purposeful strategy, that's a good thing. I would love to have an opportunity to speak, maybe in person. Coaching is hopefully people will come back and I can use my coaching room again. I've been using the other space in my office, writing a speech, and please, we welcome you to Horse Talk. Our next Horse Talk is July 30th, and after that is September. Our first event at our office will be Camp Next for 14 to 26-year-olds. If you know one, are related to one, have one working with you, live near one, please consider sharing Camp Next. It's a half day of experts helping them know things that it took you 10 or 20 years later in life to learn all of those things. We'll have it in the atrium of my office building where we can still kind of socially distance. As I said in the beginning, when I started doing these Zoom sessions, the first ones were about Horse Talk since I had to cancel my book party. I'm doing a new cover of Horse Talk, so someday I can have a party once again for the book. We started out with Horse Talk, then we went to the most famous people I know that will take my call, and then the most timely topics. I thank you for joining me on this journey. I didn't know exactly where it was going to go, and I am grateful that you came on this journey with me. I consider you all a part of the community of Electric Impulse, and if I can ever answer a question for you or help you in any way, it will be my pleasure. I'm glad to stay on and answer any questions for anyone. Anyone out there have any last words before we hit the road? Literally or figuratively.
Leslie, I would just say you were absolutely grace under pressure. I just did a webinar for 150 people and had a couple technical difficulties on Monday. And seeing how you handled that, I think that's one of the biggest things with Zoom that we don't have in person. You wouldn't have an exotic dancer coming into a room, and you handled that so well. And I don't know what you did to eliminate that, but it was masterful. So
well, maybe I should promise an exotic dancer for my next Zoom session. Like, come to my next Zoom session and I give you an exotic dancer. What do you think? Do you think that would sell? But thank you, Mary.
Gosh.